a little bit about mitochondria? Because I kind of have an obsession with them. They're so fascinating to like read about and learn about. And, these tiny little parts of our cells that produce energy for us in the form of ATP molecules. Can you talk to us about the role of mitochondria in immune health?
Sure. I mean, so mitochondria are basically enslaved bacteria. In fact, the theory is that they were a kind of bacteria called rickettsia. And Lynn Margulis, who used to be Lynn Sagan, you remember Carl Sagan? She was married to Carl Sagan, right?
Oh,
Brilliant. So Lynn Margulis Sagan, brilliant scientist. She married Carl Sagan, and he just wanted her to cook. And she said, I'm a scientist. That's not what I do. But she kept saying, the DNA in mitochondria. So mitochondria has its own DNA, right? Its own nucleic material. And it's different than the DNA in the nucleus. And that DNA resembles very closely the DNA in certain bacteria. So the way the theory goes is that as the Earth was evolving about 2 billion years ago, roughly, there were new bacteria called cyanobacteria that had the ability to utilize sunlight to make energy, and then they produced oxygen. Now, other bacteria could take that oxygen and use that with glucose to make energy. And if they could do that, they're much more efficient. If you only use glucose to make energy, you have to have a lot of glucose. But if you use the glucose and the oxygen to make energy, you can make a heck of a lot more of the energy molecule ATP. And so I'm telling you this because that's what allowed for multicellular life. We could never have had multicellular life without mitochondria, right? So how many mitochondria you have in a cell? Oh, a couple of hundred to the tens of thousands. And which cells have the most mitochondria? Heart, brain, right? Cells that are utilizing a lot of energy, that ATP currency. Now, the reason this is all getting really fascinating is because we used to think all the mitochondria did was make ATP. Now it turns out that mitochondria basically control the whole life and death of the cell. So every cell in your body every living cell has got mitochondria in it. And if those mitochondria aren't healthy, the cells don't function right. And part of what determines how healthy those mitochondria are going to be is the balance between these chemicals called free radicals, right? Most people think of that as like rancid fat. So iron will rust. That's a result of free radicals. So free radicals versus antioxidants. That balance has a huge impact on how well mitochondria work. And the reason that I'm going into this in so much detail is because we know that certain immune cells that are responsible for basically programming whether the rest of the immune system is happy. These are cells called dendritic cells or macrophages. Whether you have the right balance of free radicals and antioxidants in those cells determines how happy they're going to be. And if they're happy, so, I'm using an anthropomorphic term, but yeah, you want your dendritic cells and your macrophages to be happy because they're the cells that are telling the rest of the immune system, are we under attack or not? Stranger danger. So here's the problem. We're surrounded with strangers, right? Our mouth, our nose, our gut is full of strangers, right? Bacteria that are not of us. They're foreigners. And so the immune system has to decide, literally decide, well, are those strangers going to attack us or not? Should we be worried about them? Now, if dendritic cells, macrophages, if they're not functioning properly, they're going to start sending the wrong messages. They're going to start believing that the body's under attack, and they're going to send out chemical signals with little messaging molecules called cytokines, right? And suddenly cytokines used to be really esoteric, right? Now all the drugs being used for certain autoimmune diseases are anti-cytokine drugs.
Right.
And we know that at least with a subset of people that have MS, there's a cytokine called interleukin 17, IL-17.
Mhm.
And it's not everybody with MS, but a lot of people with MS, I think, especially people who have very progressive disease, their interleukin 17, that cytokine goes way up. Well, why would the immune cells be overproducing that signaling molecule? Well, one of the theories is because they are misinterpreting the presence of what should be healthy bacteria, right? This ties into the hygiene hypothesis.
Yep.
So if these sentinel cells, they're the ones that are kind of sitting on the mountaintop going, okay, is it all good, all quiet, Western Front, everything's good? Or are they saying, I don't know, things look a little suspicious. And
Yeah.
there's this weird virus, Epstein-Barr virus. And I kind of seeing it floating by every now and then, and I'm starting to think maybe we're under attack by Epstein-Barr virus. And maybe we should alert the rest of the immune cells that we're under attack by this virus. And those immune cells should start making a lot of antibodies.
So, yeah, there's all this talk about viruses, including EBV, being closely correlated with the onset and progression of MS.
Yes.
What can we do if we have damaged mitochondria? I wanted to kind of get into this topic of mitohormesis and how we can sort of feed our mitochondria. Like, what would be some actionable things people can do to get the mitochondria to bounce back?
Well, the first thing you want to do is eat a clean diet, right? Sort of obvious. Now, it doesn't have to be 100% organic, but the closer you can get to that, the better. You don't want to be exposed to a lot of the chemicals that are out there, like Roundup, glyphosate. It's all over the place, or these PFAS, the Teflon derived substances. They're all over the place. Now we're finding out they're in that wrap. If you buy meat in the grocery store and there's that shiny surface on the inside of the paper they put on the meat, that it's actually leaching out these chemicals. So you want to start by eating fresh, right? And I think that's a good rule for everybody. And even people say, well, I can't afford organic, it's too expensive. Well, at the very least, you want to get away from processed foods, things in packaging,
Yep.
right? So do I avoid every single thing in a box or package? Absolutely not. No,
Right.
I don't only eat things from my garden in the backyard, but I try to eat, my wife is becoming a master gardener. She grows arugula. She just harvested our first arugula harvest. One of the best things that you can eat, arugula.
Oh, it's so good for
Also,
you.
in England, they call it rocket.
I like
Yeah,
that.
I love that. So again, eat fresh. Try to eat salads and greens and the broccoli sprouts that I mentioned, berries every single day. So eat fresh, minimize packaging, and minimize, things are in plastic wrap, boxes, things like that. So that's the first thing. And that itself will lower your total toxic load. And then the second thing for your mitochondria is to eat color. And my friend, Dr. Deanna Minnick, I think she's written a whole book about this, the rainbow effect, right?
I
How,
mean, she's all about the
all the
rainbow.
colors, she's all about the rainbow. And she's right. But, if that's too complicated to think about, just eat your berries. Eat your blueberries every day.
Good. So fresh foods, color. What about
Color,
some other?
okay. Exercise, obviously. What kind of exercise? I always get asked that. What's the best thing for mitohormesis? How do you make more mitochondria? The best exercise is the exercise that you can do.
I love that. I mean, if we said it was like this exercise, like not everybody's going to go do that, right? And you don't even have to do, you know, excessive exercise to get benefits, right? Like people think that they have to be running for a long period of time. I mean, even modest amounts of exercise can sort of recalibrate your mitochondria so that they work better, you make more of them, right?
It's moving and breathing. is how I think about it. So anything that gets you breathing a little bit harder, walking at a brisk pace. I'm a swimmer, so you know, that's really what gets me excited. I swim a couple of miles a week, and I love it. I love being in the water, and it's good for the joints. You don't have to worry about like damaging your cartilage, etc. So for people that feel comfortable in the water, my patients, I really encourage them to get in the water. I had a patient with MS years ago that really loved to go jump in the Cold Creek here in Boulder. And he didn't do it in the winter, but as soon as it became tolerable, he would go jump in the creek every day in this almost ice cold water, and would regularly report how much better his symptoms were.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are getting interested in these like cold showers or like dipping into cold water. And I can tell you, I always tell the story of how I did that at a river, glacial river in near Banff. And for
Oh,
hours, I only even submerged it was shallow. So it was only like the front half of my body. 45 seconds is all I did. But for hours after that, my mind was clear.
yeah.
My mood was calm. Like it was unlike anything I've experienced. Like it just was not me, but it was like a me that I really liked. So I try, and just getting out of your comfort zone a little bit. Don't be at the same temperature all the time. Give your body these little stresses to help build more mitochondria.
So that which does not kill you will make you stronger, right? So I'm
Usually,
not telling people to do do things that are ridiculous. And, my context is living in Boulder, Colorado. There are a lot of athletes around here that do extreme things, that run up the hill behind me. I'm not saying you need to do that, but I'm saying if you push yourself a little bit, and now people with MS have to be really careful, because if you overdo it, then there's that post-exertional malaise kind of thing. So I'm very cognizant of not saying, hey, go out and run till you drop. But there is a certain tolerance level, and most people know what it is for them. That if you push yourself to that tolerance level, that actually stimulates you to make more mitochondria. Why is that beneficial? Because more mitochondria make for a more efficient metabolism, lowers blood sugar, improves muscle function, improves brain function, improves neuron function, improves immune cell function. So you need to figure out exactly how much you can push.
yep. I like to tell people like, can you do 5 to 10% more than what you
Yeah.
normally do? Just like do it slow, don't be a hero. But I love that you just said exercise does all those things. And in a Western medicine approach, we have to attack each of those things separately, right? If your blood
Yep.
pressure is high, we give you a medication for that. If your blood sugar is high, we give you a medication for that. But exercise will simultaneously help you put all of those things back towards a more normal place. And that's really the beauty of a functional medicine approach.
Right. And so again, it's finding out what is exactly the right amount of exercise. So
Yep.
what we know is being sedentary, is the new smoking.
Yep.
It's
For
the new.
sure. And you don't have to be an unhealthy person to fall into that trap. Like I work from home now. I
Yep.
sit quite a bit and I have to like set alarms to get myself out of my chair, stand up while I'm working. So for anybody listening, can you just sit less, right? Like you said, sitting is the new smoking. Yeah,
My Apple Watch actually tells me you need to get up.
there you go.
So I can either get mad at the watch or, I don't want to kill the messenger, but it makes a good point. Like just get up, move around, do something different just for a minute. That makes a difference. And again, I know I'm coming back to swimming, but that's one reason I recommend swimming a lot, because it's kind of hard to overdo it in swimming because there's so many different levels. Some people just get in the water with a little float band around and then just kind of barely walk up and down. It's supported exercise. Great stuff.
Yeah, there's so many ways to move your body, even if you have physical limitations. Like there's adaptive exercises, talk to your physical therapist. There's always a way. I have a friend who's a quadriplegic, and she has somebody just passively move her body, and she gets into a pool and says like that's the best, that's her favorite part of her week when she gets to do that. So just a little creativity and just thinking outside the box to find exercise that works for you.
One thing that Terry Walsh did, which we've talked about, is she got little muscle stimulator, little electrical stimulators to actually get her muscles to contract.
Yeah.
And so she went from being in a wheelchair to dancing. And I've danced with Terry, so I know, I know what she's talking about.
Yeah. So it's not cheating, right? Some people will make that comment of like, I've heard it, no, she did more than just diet. Yes, she did lots of things. And
Everything. That's the system.
yes, you want to treat all the systems. So don't use just one tool. Layer on your tools. You do your Western medicine medications, and then you layer in all the things that we're talking about today. So